Dynasty Rookie Rankings. Players on the rise. We have Razzball's own Paul Blake to break down who's on the rise in his rankings in Dynasty, starting right now on the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. Welcome back, folks, to another episode of the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Lamarco. If you're joining us, today's Wednesday. You know it's Dynasty Talk today, and today we got a very great show. We have updated rankings on Razzball right now for Dynasty Rookie Rankings across the board. The update just dropped on Sunday, and we have Paul Blake to talk about his updates to his rankings and 5 players that are on the rise. So you want to know where you're drafting these guys, how high you have to draft them, what players are really scooting up the draft boards because of the mini camps and OTAs. We're going to break it down today's show. Before we do, we want to make sure you're following us across the board at Razzball Fantasy on YouTube and also on IG and TikTok. We have daily content on there as well. But of course, make sure you're going to razzball.com. We have great content on the hockey, basketball, baseball, and of course, football. And make sure you're going to check out those Dynasty Rookie Rankings on razzball.com right now. We have 9 consensus sites, and we just updated it with CBS Sports, Heath Cummings rankings as well. We'll try to, hey, Heath, shout out. Why don't you come on and debate Paul Blake? Because the man's the reigning champ. All right, let's get into it. Let's bring in our co-host for today. It's Paul Blake. What's going on? You can find Paul Blake at Paul Blake PB12 on Twitter. How are things going, man?
They're going great, Bobby. How you doing, man?
I'm good, dude. I'm ready. This dynasty stuff is really taking a toll on me, man. I'll admit, rookies have always been kind of meh to me, and I've always kind of let them just kind of fly. This year, I'm in it with you. I'm wrist deep in rookie talk with you every week. I care too much about rookies now. I'm all in. So today we're talking risers, and we're going to talk about the updates you made. Now, these aren't necessarily the guys who risen up the most, but they're guys who caught my eye because we've either talked about them previously or, in the first round, for example, the first guy we're going to talk about, it's moving up just 3 spots is huge, especially in the back of that first round. So let's dive into it today. We're going to do Dynasty Rookie Risers. The first player we're going to talk about today is Christian Watson. And of course, he's a hot topic. Right now, you started him at 12 and you bumped him up to 9. That's up 3 spots from your previous rank. He leaped over some notable players. Let's see, like David Bell, our boy, which, I basically should put you in jail for that. Wan'Dale Robinson and George Pickens. So tell us a little bit about why Watson, has climbed up the rankings in your opinion.
Well, Watson, he moves up just on pure upside. If I'm being honest with myself, which when you take a long look back at your own rankings, which I highly recommend everyone does, if you keep them your own rankings, keep looking at them. I even wrote in the last update, like, how does someone update rankings when no games are going on? It doesn't make any sense. When I was on the outside of the fantasy world, it didn't make sense to me. But now that I'm on the inside and I have debates with other fantasy writers, stories come out, different things come out, you understand, okay, well, this is why people change. And if I'm just being honest with myself, if it comes down to a group of 2 or 3 players, which often my draft picks do, I've kind of got it narrowed down to these 3 guys I'm thinking about. I usually push for the guy with the highest upside. And if I'm being honest with myself, Christian Watson has higher upside than those other guys. I love David Bell, love Wan'Dale, but if you're looking for upside, a guy 6'4", 210 pounds with a 4.3 40 and a 38.5-inch vert. He's got that 9.96 relative athletic score that we've talked about before. Puts him 12th all time since receivers from 1987, which is just ridiculous. So I think you got to chase the upside on this one. I do think worst case scenario, he's a wide receiver 2 for the Packers. I think he's going to, his floor essentially is what you got out of Valdez-Scantling. And Valdez-Scantling, if you average his last 4 seasons, you're looking around 540 yards and 4 touchdowns. If that's as bad as it's going to get for Watson, I'll take it. And I got to think that that's the floor and everything else is upside. He could be number 2 wide receiver, maybe even better than Allen Lazard. I don't have it that way. I prefer Allen Lazard, but Watson's in the conversation, which pushes him up a few spots above these other cats for me.
Yeah, and so I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate, and I am the doomsday scenario Christian Watson guy. I think I might be totally fading the guy, and here's why. Now, listen, the draft equity is there. 34th pick overall, top of that second round, not a problem. good signs out of camp, but it's shorts and t-shirt year. You know what I mean? And like this guy's a physical freak. So when the pads go on, who knows? But at the same time, here's my issue. Davante Adams, it took him 3 years to really take off. Jordy Nelson, it took 4 years with Aaron Rodgers to take off. Those are the last two number ones. And if there's like a lineage for Aaron Rodgers to say, hey, you need to come in and earn your stripes. Now, I'm not saying Watson can't do it, but listen, we're talking about Davante Adams and Jordy Nelson, 3 and 4 years apiece. And then the second part of that is, what is Aaron Rodgers even going to be playing in 3 to 4 years? By the time he earns his stripes, does Aaron Rodgers even have the quarterback? Is it Love? Is it another guy? So I guess my question is, it takes 3 or 4 years typically for Rodgers to trust those guys to give him elite target shares. I guess it's like, well, if he's not even around, then what's the point? So I guess I personally am going to fade him. If he blows up, this is going to be egg on my face. I just don't see it because he's not going to do it in year 1 probably, maybe year 2, and by year 3, Aaron Rodgers could be gone. So that's me fading him. That's my only devil's advocate today. I promise. The rest of the 4 I love. So I'm in. I'm all in. And I'm going to support you starting right now on the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. Tyler Allgeier jumping to 22nd overall. That's up 6 spots. He leapt over other notable running backs like Isaiah Spiller and another running back we're going to talk about later, Tyrion Davis-Price. Now, Allgeier doesn't really have that pick equity. He's a day 3 pick, 5th round, 151st overall. So what is it about Tyler Allgeier? Is it the situation? Give us a snippet why he's up in the 2nd round now.
You're on to me, Bob. That's exactly it. It's the situation. 4 out of my 5 guys on the list today are upside. The one guy who's not upside is Tyler Allgeier. He's a try-hard guy, do it outwork everybody. He's a walk-on from by BYU, worked his way up the depth chart, and just kept producing, and they kept giving him the ball. He's a bigger guy, powerful back. You look at Atlanta's backfield, and you got Cordero Patterson, 31 years old, had a great year. He's probably pretty young for a 31 as far as the body goes because he wasn't playing running back the whole time. Actually, mostly just playing special teams for the first few years of his career. But if you watch Patterson, he wears these like kicker pads out there. He's like barely in pads, and he's playing running back and playing wide receiver and doing it all for these guys. I don't know that the Falcons asked him to do that much again. And I think that they're kind of going to lean on this Tyler Allgeier, who you watch his highlights with BYU and they won't drop your jaw, but he's very consistent. And you see him in one game, he's got the arm wrapped up. Another game, he's got the leg wrapped up. I think he's probably getting, 25 carries here, working through some injuries, just busting his butt, doing everything he can. I don't think he's going to be outworked by these other Falcons backs. I think that's going to get him on the field early in his rookie year. I don't think he has the upside to change anything, but, as far as this group of running backs from this class, he's got a good shot at playing time. I think you got to roll with him and just see what happens. Plus, I like him along the goal line. Patterson is an underrated goal line runner. I really do think he is. I think he's a very good goal line runner, but they're going to want to throw the ball to him, and they want to give him those breaks. And I think the guy that gives him the break is Tyler Allgeier.
So the Cordell Patterson situation is confusing, right? So early OTAs and minicamps, Arthur Smith basically said, Patterson's here, but we're not even giving him reps because we're resting him. And they're basically the mindset of Patterson is the guy. Now, this doesn't sound like you just said, he's an underrated power back as a receiver, but it's so much like Cordell Patterson might have been the first Deebo Samuel. Like Deebo got all these reps last year and he blew on the scene, but I think Cordell Patterson kind of fits that mold too, where he is a converted wide receiver, hits the holes hard, and he just looks good as a runner. But last season, he was the RB6, weeks 1 through 15, not just weeks 1 through 5. Weeks 1 through 15, the RB6 in fantasy. And now the coaching staff's kind of like, well, we're going to rest him, get him ready for week 1. So I don't know what to think. And plus, we did an article last year on running backs, draft capital, doesn't matter. And it came out to about a 5% hit rate for day 3 running backs. That's long odds. So you're talking about every 1 out of every 20 running backs actually become fantasy viable. So it is long odds, but I do agree. The situation, the type of back, the guy had 1,600 yards and 23 touchdowns last year at BYU. So I think he's definitely the type of back that fits the Arthur Smith scheme. So I do like this call. All right, jump down to the next running back. Another one, Tyrion Davis-Price, 24th overall, the San Francisco running back, who, by the way, does have the draft capital. He was taken ahead, 93rd overall, 3rd round, pick 29 in the 3rd round. he moved ahead of you moved him ahead of some receivers. So it looks like that back of the second round, you pushed some receivers down, moved up some running backs. So talk to us why you did that and why Davis-Price in particular.
Well, yeah, and that's very observant of you to pick that up on the running back and receiver thing. Because as I started looking at the rankings and, kind of giving it, kind of the blimp view, take a look, scale back and see what everything we've got here. That's kind of how I looked at this draft. You've got a lot of talented receivers, really talented receivers that can step in and be good right away. And then just kind of this pile, this glob of running backs who are all kind of like, are they good enough to be superstars? No. Are they good enough to kind of carry you and be good running backs for a few years in the NFL? Yeah, probably good. And so that's where I kind of put them all in this group. And then for me, like I mentioned with earlier draft decisions, when it usually comes down to a group of people, I like having that decision. I like having that, I've got 3-4 running backs here. I want to take a running back in the second round. Let's pick from this group that I've got. And Davis-Price finds himself in that group. I was a little surprised that the 49ers took him this early. And I know people are having, memories of Trey Sermon, and they're all worried about that with kind of a powerish back. Davis-Price didn't do much his first few years in college, but he was pretty good last year playing on a piss poor LSU team. He's got the power, he's got the strength, gives a little bit of a different look, and we've seen what Shanahan does with these backs. Heck, I'm old enough to remember what old Shanahan did with these backs. I mean, I've been chasing Shanahan backs for, it feels like 25 years now. It's always going to be a shuffle. It's always going to be whoever's the hot hand. I think Davis-Price is one of those hot hands at least some point within the next 2 years, and he gives you a good look. And my advice, wait till he gets hot, wait till he has that 4-game stretch where it looks like this guy's a stud, and then trade him off. I would trade him for whatever you could get, because we all know the other shoe's going to drop. There'll be another back. It could be a guy off the street. Could be a guy. Well, they had that Mike Anderson one time. They pulled out of the Marines or something like that. Who was running.
Oh, it's old school Shanahan had some wild dudes, man. Wild dudes coming off the scrap heap.
So I just want to grab one of them and roll with it. And Davis-Price is good enough for me.
Yeah, I think the Trey Sermon situation's odd last year because even in camp, no one was talking about Elijah Mitchell in the offseason. Either the beat reporters suck in San Francisco or the 49ers are extra good at keeping their disguise, because no one thought Elijah Mitchell was going to be the guy. It was either Trey Sermon behind Raheem Mostert, and then sure enough, it was Mitchell. Mitchell looked different. He looked really good, and he also was treated differently than these guys in the past. He had the first running back since Carlos Hyde in 2017 to have over 200 carries in a season, and that was on 11 games. So he just became a workhorse. Then they gave him 27 carries, 17 carries in the first 2 playoff games. He might not hold up to that, so that's why Davis-Price has a lot of value. But at the same time, it looks like Mitchell's going to be the 1A, at least for the next 3 years through his contract, unless he starts seeing a lot of big injuries. But Davis-Price is the bigger back, I believe, that can hold up to that workload. So it is a great idea to look out for him, because if Mitchell breaks down, this kid is going to be walking into just an absolute stud situation. All right, going to keep up with the theme. Another running back, Pierre Strong, 26 overall. He's up 7 spots. Once again, moved ahead. A bunch of receivers you moved ahead of. He was picked actually in the 4th round, 127th overall. He's going to be behind, obviously, Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, and, of course, James White. So what's the outlook for him and why you moved him up for Pierre Strong?
Yeah, big fan of Pierre Strong. I wanted to move him higher right out of the gate just because I've got family near the area where he's from. I'm familiar with the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. They're a fun team to follow. This isn't their first running back they've had in the NFL. I think Zach Zenner, if I remember right, was running with the Lions a little while ago. And Zenner was a different type of back. That's kind of a power back guy. But Pierre Strong brings the speed. Okay, he ran a 4.37 40, 5'11", 210. So he's a little bit more of your Elijah Mitchell style. We'll see how that pans out in New England, and they've got so many running backs. They've got to go. I don't know what they're going to do with them, but I do know that he's different. I look at Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, and you're looking at 2 power backs. I like Stevenson better out of those 2, which makes me think perhaps they look into trading Harris, or maybe Harris falls out of favor. I don't know. I really do like Harris as well, but they're kind of 2 of the same thing. But if you were able to mix one of them with this speed back, now we got the thunder and lightning look. And I think that could be a good thing for Pierre Strong Jr. That's just a lot of speed to leave on the bench. Plus, we know New England likes to get their running backs involved in the receiving game. Maybe they get him out into space and just let him go and watch how fast he can run. See if he can hit his head on the goalpost.
Yeah, I think, well, when I'm looking at this, the best part, you nailed two things. Number one, his player comp on Player Profiler is Elijah Mitchell. So nail that one. 99th percentile speed score. So he is a flyer, absolutely. The other benefits for him is Damian Harris, even if he's not traded, is a free agent after this season. James White was signed to a 2-year contract, but they have an out after this season. And he's also not ready for camp. He might not even be ready for week 1. So that depth chart starts shrinking fast. And you could be looking as soon as next year at that perfect ideal backfield, Stevenson and Strong. I guess my one question for you is, before we move on, how was he in pass pro? Did he do anything in pass pro? What's his likelihood for that?
Not much. Basically, when this guy was on the field, he was running, and he's not a big back as we. Elijah Mitchell's not a big guy either. That's what makes me worried about Elijah Mitchell is, you watch, I think the 49ers led all NFL in distance between when the running back gets the ball and when he gets first touched by a defender. So I think that's kind of their game in San Francisco. Like, hey, just get a fast guy, get as fast up to speed as you can, and either make that defender pay for the tackle or just run right by him. But that also does lead to big impacts and big time collisions. And I don't know if that's going to hit Pierre. Obviously, I don't know if that's going to hit Elijah Mitchell. But these are fast guys that the coaches are going to take one look at and be like, okay, well, it's really hard to methodically matriculate the ball down the field on 14 passes where we're gaining 6-7 yards a pass. We need to get these big 60, 50, 70-yard runs that kind of just flip the script on us a little bit, give us a few, I guess you call them easier scores.
Okay. All right. The last one is, I think, one of the most strangest stories, right? You got this guy, Justyn Ross. You bumped him up 23 spots. I think we're like, I'm thinking you forgot about him the first go around. You're like, oh crap, that Ross guy. Let me bump him up to 27. He's up 23 spots. Now, he's an undrafted free agent, but this guy, has the breakout age. He was a stud at Clemson. My question is, like, what are the likelihood? I mean, I know the talent's there, but the guy was an undrafted free agent, right? So, like, why do you think now you should consider him even at that 2-3 turn in Dynasty rookie drafts?
More upside chasing, really. That's all this is. And this one, I've never felt weirder about a ranking in my life, because Justyn Ross, talent-wise, I think he was a top 50 recruit. I think he was a 7th receiver overall. I want to say he was the top recruit in the entire state of Alabama and chose to go to Clemson, which is kind of wild. Starts out 2018. He's the best receiver on Clemson's team, where they have Hunter Renfrow on the team. They've got T. Higgins on the team. 2019, he's the best receiver on the team again with T. Higgins on the team. And then he has that injury that, what is it called? I wrote it down here. Oh, geez, it's Klippel flail syndrome. It's a congenital condition where vertebrae fuse together. He would be the first NFL player to ever play with this issue. And apparently part of the surgery was they removed a disc in his neck. So it's super dangerous. I don't even know if this dude should be playing football, but he did play in 2021. The Chiefs saw enough to draft him. This is a flyer for me. And I think where I have him is a good time to just put a flyer on him, and then maybe on that fab run, get yourself some insurance, maybe take another receiver that's a little bit further down. And if he hits, great, you're doing awesome. If he doesn't play at all, maybe that's for the best. I don't know. But this is a guy you want to keep it on the top of your mind. You want to follow the updates coming out of camp. Can he play? If he can play, I think it's worth a look. I don't know if he should play. I'm not a doctor. This sounds like some pretty serious stuff. But if he's out on the field, he's got the skills to produce. He produced at the highest level in college, I should say.
It's wondering if that injury is going to hinder him on the field. It doesn't seem like it would, right? Maybe his neck doesn't turn as well, but it's not like a serious knee or leg injury. He's still going to have the athletic ability. I'm interested to see what happens there. But here's an interesting nugget. MVS potential out after this season. Juju Smith-Schuster 1-year contract. Mecole Hardman free agent after this season. Josh Gordon free agent after this season. So as soon as next year, that entire quote-unquote veteran starting lineup is going to be gone potentially. And Justyn Ross, if they show enough, him and Sky Moore, they could say, you know what? Let's pull the plug on those guys. They're ready now. You could have an absolute stud playing starting snaps with Patrick Mahomes as soon as 2023. So I don't hate the take. All right, folks, that's all we got for today. Once again, this is the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast on the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel. Make sure you're checking us out on IG and TikTok at Razzball Fantasy. And of course, you're going to razzball.com to get all your great content you need for football, basketball, hockey, and also other sports that we have. Once again, I'm your host, Bobby LaMarco. You can follow me at Bobby LaMarco on Twitter. That man's Paul Blake. You can follow him on Twitter at Paul Blake PB12 on Twitter. Make sure you go check out his latest articles on his rankings for the top, what was it, top 20 this time? It was top 20, wasn't it? Top 20 Dynasty, correct?
So we got 10, and then we got 30 coming out here really quick.
30 coming. All right, 30's coming out soon. We're dropping it soon, so make sure you check it out on razzball.com. Thanks again, Paul Blake. We are out of here.